Well, I spent the last maybe 10 years away from Beirut,
Mm,
being on tour, living in Europe most of the times. Paris was the place of choice
okay.
because I had family there. But then we would tour Europe the whole year, and I would see Beirut maybe one month or well, 1 month out of the year combined. But I knew that I had an unfinished story with the city. Now, all of this was amplified by how much trouble the city went through these last 5 years and the introspective work that COVID put us in.
Mm,
So I was locked in the city that I don't recognize anymore, that got blown up to pieces at the
right.
same time with one of the biggest explosions in history, and then
Sure.
by one of the biggest economic crises in the world as well. So I found another connection to Beirut, and I found a responsibility towards it, something that I had never found before. I never wanted to represent the Lebanese people or Arabs. Or I never gave a shit, actually. It was just about rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock. No, you know how it is.
Sure.
But now, no. I have a place in the history of this country, and I'm claiming it. Whether it's pretentious or not, fuck it. It's. I have a place in the panorama.
It's interesting because you wrote this letter. I think it's kind of like a bio about the album, where you explain certain elements of Lebanese history, and
Mm.
it's interesting when you say, "Well, I wasn't really involved. I was just focused on rock and roll." When did was it because of kind of all the like you say the explosion, the economic things? Because if we think about the 60s and 70s, it was quite different over there, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, actually. I mean, from what we're told. Again, we were never
Mm,
there.
yeah,
The
fair enough.
60s, especially. The 60s, especially. Um, there was some sort of a renaissance in terms of jet setters were always there. You had Marlon Brandos of the world going there for one dinner and then leaving for one party. The Dalidas, all these big cats. Um, and the Lebanese has always been a good caterer to entertainment. We have one of the biggest party scenes in the world, voted.
Okay.
Like in terms of electronic music and even all sorts of club music. Not only EDM, even things that are a little more researched.
Mm,
Um, so we've always been a good welcoming people. Now the civil war started in '75 officially, um, and that changed the whole map of the country, the whole demographic map, and even cultural map. And every now and then, every 10 years, we get a renaissance, and then something happens, brings you back
mm.
to a bit of a dark ages. It's a cycle, it's cyclical, it's insane, and I've survived four of them,
Wow.
and now yet another one coming. Hopefully not, but we can sense it. I mean, we can. Well, I'm prepared for war. I have my luggage at the door.
I can
Um,
yeah well I can't imagine actually I was gonna say but it's yeah it's crazy to think about really.
it's just how you feel anxious sometimes, and we can touch on mental health as well
Mm,
because we're all going through these things these days. It's the modern disease.
mm.
Um, Imagine that anxiousness for days on the same level.
What is your feeling about the city these days then because as you mentioned in the past couple of years there have been quite some tragedies and then I mean everything that's going on but can you do you see kind of the city flourishing in any way or is there any positive things that you can take out of the city?
Yeah. Always. This city is used to it. I mean,
Mm,
before modern history, this city was buried 8 times
mm.
into the sea, into the ground, and then hence the whole phoenix legend, like we rise from the ashes. But fuck that, we're tired. You know,
I can
uh,
imagine.
yeah. And I'm part of the city's fabric. It means that I have a bar in the city. I own a bar.
Okay.
I'm a DJ as well. I play electronic music in the clubs. So I have my hand on the what do you call it, on the pulse of the city.
Mm.
I see it every day and every night when I go to the bar or to the clubs and I play. Um, there's always pulse in the city. Now, it doesn't mean it's always it's always healthy.
Sure.
Sometimes it's incredibly toxic. But for instance, last week I was in my own bar. I walk in there. We had, I don't know, 50 people in there. Most of them are on their phones,
Mm,
checking for the next Israeli strike. So it was sort of a communal depression in a sort, but at the same time, everyone is talking about it, so that is healthy in a way.
no, because I can imagine. I mean, I'm from the Netherlands, and we've had a pretty easy go over here, if we compare it to a lot of the world. So it's difficult for me to place myself in that. But there seems to be in these types of cities like Beirut, there seems to be a certain resilience. Is that fair to say?
Yes, yes. It's not always a quality that's positive. You know,
Mm,
sometimes desperation creates action. Resilience creates cycles. Okay,
mm,
they'll kick me, I'll get back up. They'll kick me, they'll get back up. But if I'm desperate, maybe I'll do something that they won't kick me again.
mm.
So we have a Stockholm syndrome with the whole resilience
Right.
concept. You know, desperation sometimes creates action. Hope is a double-edged sword.
Oh yeah, of
You know,
course. With that in mind, then, because what do you hope an album like this can do? I don't know, how is your music perceived by people from Lebanon? Do you know?
uh, yeah, I mean, I'm part of the minority here. We're not what the mainstream listens to.
Okay.
So that's for sure. We're in a minority, so I think that's the size that it will have here. If one of the songs, if one of the songs crosses over into one of the mainstream radios, that'll be a lucky thing.
Mm.
But no, here it's just a place for big pop, big-breasted, big-lipped pop artists. Um, yeah, we're on the fringes of that. So technically, I'm a product for export.